Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome to my latest video here. In this one, I wanted to recommend a little throwback for you to check out as you head into the weekend. If you're looking for something to watch in this culture of choice paralysis, where we have way too many things to choose from, too many forms of content. So let's go back to 1973 and check in with the immortal Christopher Lee, who I was previously, at least previous to about maybe 18 months ago, familiar with from Lord of the Rings as Saruman and from the Star Wars prequels, or at least two of them, as Count Dooku, but have since become much more familiar with him and associate him much more with several Hammer films from like the late 50s through 70s. Many of which I covered and I will link to at the end of this video, so be sure to stick around to the end for that. For Mr. Lee and his film presence, I'm recommending the 1973 film The Wicker Man, the synopsis for which is as follows. A Puritan police sergeant arrives in a Scottish island village in search of a missing girl, who the pagan locals claim never existed. Now, Lee is not the main star of this film, that being the police officer portrayed by Edward Woodward, which that's kind of difficult to say 5 times. Edward Woodward. Anyways, and there was a remake of this starring Nicolas Cage, which I think I may have seen way back when it first hit home video, but I don't really have much memory of it except for something about bees. But that might make a good choice for me to do a little remake review down the line. But for this one from 1973, which I really enjoyed, I'd come across this Blu-ray from like a local secondhand shop of like music and movies and so forth, on one of my little physical media outings. All I kind of knew or remembered going in was that it had something to do with cults or like cults of sorts or different religious groups or something. Similar to, and likely having later inspired down the line, films such as Midsummer. So obviously if you enjoyed Midsummer, meaning felt it was a good film, not that it would make you feel good watching that movie because that is quite creepy and twisted and bizarre, but that if you felt it was a good film, you'd likely enjoy this one. So, at its basics, it hit a horror theme that really creeps me out. Anything to do with religion or cults and so forth. Those situations that one can't really get out of, but more on that in a moment. So, this police officer is investigating this missing girl on this island village, and as he's conducting his investigation, the locals are just stating that she doesn't even exist, and they're not really providing any help at all. They seem kind of sketchy. So as he's kind of going to be stuck on this island for a bit, he set up in a local room for let and kind of branches out his investigation further into this town, speaking with more of the locals, but still he's really getting no help. But he's definitely catching on that something just isn't right with these people, at least from his point of view. As he, works his way through this town, and he begins witnessing some really strange behaviors of the locals, strange customs, and is eventually able to speak with kind of like the village leader portrayed by Christopher Lee, who can, as is, frequent with his roles, and from what I hear he's like this in person, he has this strange mix of like being extremely friendly and charming while also able to be very imposing at the same time. So like other stories with like a similar small town religious cult kind of setting and storylines and so forth, our investigator, he is the protagonist here. He's the outsider, the one who doesn't quite understand and is seen as like kind of in the wrong due to his ignorance of their ways and the way that he's questioning them. Of course, Lee is very charming and explains a lot of this away by going into kind of like the history of the town and how this village was founded and what their beliefs are, just being different from the rest of the world and having found like this better balance with nature and such. So eventually, things do kind of turn sour, and he's unable to leave, leading to some dangerous situations and, most important, in my opinion about this film, a really major twist kind of thrown in toward the end. Now, I've mentioned numerous times, I'm sure, that, being trapped in a situation with no way out kind of seals me into that feeling of fright when it comes to horror. If there's an easy way out of a situation and the characters decide not to take it, and especially if they have several occasions throughout the film to easily get out of it, it's hard for me to feel sorry for them if they're gonna, end their well-being if they stay in that situation. And if I'm not really caring about their well-being, then I'm just not as frightened about it. So when they are truly trapped, such as this like religious or spiritual horror where one can't outrun a ghost, or a pedophile with razor fingers on their hands getting after them in their dreams, or being physically prevented from leaving, such as being on this island, it really creeps me out and is scary, and it kind of pulls me in much more from like the pure horror aspect of it. On top of all that, referencing the beginning of this review, the mystery. Another aspect I frequently mention is mystery. So that mystery and our protagonist being trapped on this island with him being the only outsider really gave me that frightening, claustrophobic kind of feel, as my interest also had been piqued by this mystery slowly unfolding, and as he's trying to find out whatever happened to this little girl and what's going on in this town. So you throw in some really great performances, great settings that are absolutely beautiful, and surprisingly some really good music in this as well. This film really was a treat. And as for the music, a quick note on that, this film has a song, Willow's Song, in it, which it was driving me crazy as the song was playing because I knew I'd heard it somewhere, but I couldn't figure out where. Looking it up, I could just see that it came out with this film, but I finally tracked it down that it was actually covered by the Sneaker Pimps in their 1996 album Becoming X, which isn't about Twitter, under the name How Do Willow's Song. And it did a very interesting rendition of it. But anyways, sadly this title is only available for paid rental, but $4 really isn't that much. Back in the 90s, we used to pay the same, maybe even a little bit more to rent titles like this on Blockbuster, so readjusted for inflation, that's like paying $2 back in the day for something. So $4 is definitely worth it. It's definitely worth dropping a few bucks, for a rental to check this one out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest little video here for the Wicker Man, a little recommendation for what to watch this weekend. And thanks for sticking around to the end, as, along with liking, subscribing, checking out the back catalog, sharing, all that kind of stuff, really do help out the channel quite a bit. But sound off in the comments now. So, are you a fan of this one? And also, have you seen the remake? And what do you think of that compared to it? What are your thoughts? Anyways, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.